good day in Taupō. It always is a good day in Taupō, isn't it?
Always.
I'm coming from a place where we know we've had no summer, so it's crazy. We get a fine day, as we had last week, and we feel like we should be grateful when I sort of say, well, it's sort of summerish, isn't it? Anyway, there we go. It's nice to be here, and actually great to just be here for a committee meeting. I don't know why I say that, but it's wonderful. Partly put on or brought on by my comment to you, Sarah. I'm deeply grateful for these papers. For some reason, they really resonated with me, and they are a good bunch of risk and assurance papers, which will enable us to have a good meeting. So thank you, Sarah. Look, if we could just start, please, with the karakia, that would be tremendous, please.
Tuia ki te Māori o te whenua, tuia ki te mana o te tangata, tuia ki te pono, te aroha, kia piki, kia iki, ki te taumata, hui e tai ki.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that, and it's great to start with that. Just going through the agenda. Apologies, looks like a full team. Thank you. It's lovely to have you all here. Any pressures sort of post-lunch to get away? That's not a suggestion that we're going to be here for a long time, but having said that, we are starting at 10:30. Everybody's good to go? Sweet. Conflicts of interest. Any to raise in relationship to this? No? Good. I don't have any interest. Shani, I do owe you a new list from me. My general professional commitments around the country have changed substantially, and I need to let you know that, but I can assure you that none of them do. But look, for clarity, we do have in PX, and I'm happy to disclose it now, a discussion with Nigel about a service called Comply With. I'd just like to reflect that Comply With are I guess they're a vendor, aren't they, Nigel? I have nothing to do with them other than professionally. Their CEO and I have had substantial discussions about their work after I first came across them. I have had various professional contact with them, so I just want to recognise that. Again, it has nothing to do with the discussion that's in front of us, but I think it's just a relationship, shall we say, above the normal, that I've had some ongoing discussion, including being aware that he was going to make the various approaches that he has had throughout the sector. So I would just like to note that. It won't stop me from participating. I don't think it will anyway, unless you folk want to object. Okay, with that, we have the minutes of the last meeting. No, we don't, do we? We were okay, weren't we? I think that's right. So that gets us then straight into, the election of a deputy chair. I've never done this before. This is new for me. So that's absolutely superb. So, Shani, is there anything I need to know before we start? So, do I need to call for nominations? I think you've been nominated, haven't you, Kylie? Have there been any? Well, I'm about to deal with that really quickly. Are there any other nominations? In which case, I suggest we're going for system or B, okay, which is a straight vote, correct? So I think we can do this on the show of hands, or actually voices, can't we?
I'm happy to move.
Somebody's moving?
Yep, I'm happy to.
Oh, sorry, Rachel. It was sort of like from out of the clouds. I was trying to work out where that was coming from. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Appreciate that, Kevin. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Congratulations. That means you're committed to having to have a wine with me the night before a meeting to understand what's going on around the place, Kylie. I wanted to get you into the role first, so we're there. Thank you for that, Kylie, and it would be great to work with you. And thank you that you put your hand up. That's really superb. And just again, John, my gratefulness. We should always have a deputy. I've had some committees where I haven't, and it is always in its own right a wee bit problematic. So tremendous to have you on board. I had Danny last time. Great to have you here. Rightio, well that's got that dealt with. Can we move then on to the welcome to the Taupō Risk and Assurance Committee. This is from me. This is really interesting, isn't it? Oh, you're probably sick and tired of hearing me present. I just felt like it was important with the first meeting just to run through a couple of key slides. John, you heard this first time round broadly at the New Mayor's School, and I think one or two of you may have been online when I actually had these particular slides with the LGNZ follow-up. But I just want to focus on about 3 slides. You guys are well familiar with the role of a risk committee generally, but I just think, as I've done with all my commitments around the country, worthwhile just to focus on a couple. Now, most slides are up for debate. I have one slide about how we operate as a committee, which is really me preaching at you, because that's me saying how I want to run the place as a chair. Hopefully nothing in that is new, but I just think it's important that you hear how I, as a chair, am happy to have it. So, Shani, I don't know whether we have. You've got control of my slides. If you can go down to a couple, we can go past the. Oh no, we can go to my somewhat dated now cartoon, which is that actually if you can see that, it does suggest that actually we could be somewhat a tiring committee in terms of time if you're feeling sleepy. That's not the case, I would hope. We're going to have hopefully a lively one. I just want to raise the bullet points, though, which are the key thing, just really for me in terms of the committee. One is creating value. Now, I mean value, and I mean this phrase in 2 senses. One, we as a committee must create value. If at the end of the year, John, we have not added to your governance of this council, we need to change something. And when we get to the program, you'll note that I think we have in the middle of that, or at the end of the year, we'll do another self-assessment. How are we going? Is it working right? Are we actually creating value within the areas of competence that we have, which is, of course, risk and assurance, number 1. Number 2, and it's always a challenge for me too, I've got to lift my eyes up. We are risk governors, we are not risk managers. So I'm not here to do anybody else's job that is being done by management. We are here to govern risk, not to manage risk. I'll come back to that a wee bit, but it's actually really important. John and team, that is no different to what I'm sure you've been encouraged. In fact, I know some of your presenters at some of your governance workshops. Actually, it's about governance. It's not about being a manager. Oh no, Rachel, I thought you had your hand up. You're welcome to jump in if you want to do that. There's just a couple of small principles. I've got one little slide on that. We'll just rock through. The working with staff is my bit of preaching we'll get to, and I'm not going to worry about the decision making, because elsewhere around the track we are dealing with that, albeit sufficient to say what we do in this committee around thinking about risk is incredibly applicable to, should be incredibly applicable to everything else that you're doing inside council and your decision-making process. So we'll just move on from that. If I just go to the next slide. Oh, John, go for it. No, I'm in foot. No, stop me. Oh, it's okay. You're welcome to raise questions. Okay, so look, risk is the big. We'll go and keep going. Oh, you got a different presentation. Oh no, there we are. Brilliant. So I just want to reflect. I realised there we are. I've done the presentation too many times. I said create value in 2 senses, and I only described one of those. And that was actually that we as a committee must create value. We've got to be of value to the governance of the organisation. The second one, which is really driving the purpose of this committee, is that we should have a strong relationship with the strategic objectives of council. In other words, what is it that you guys want to achieve? You're going through that at the moment with your annual plan process. You're probably a long way through it, actually, and I'll probably find out a wee bit more in that process. You will be, and I know you are, got a significant program dealing with your long-term plan. And what are they doing? What do you start with? You start with what you're trying to achieve, what value you are creating for your community. And they're going to come out in nice vision statements in terms of actual objectives, in terms of strategic priorities, in terms of activity management plans and levels of service intentions. That's all about creating value. The moment you set those, you have implications for your risk environment. If you want to go and achieve something, there will always be uncertainties in the future that could threaten achievement of those objectives, okay? And it's those uncertainties that we focus on. You create a strategy, from that flows risk. So you've created, we come back to something, I'm going to ask you a question here. You've created probably a fair degree of your objectives, your strategic priorities, whatever we want to call them. Sarah, you'll have a better name for them than I can think of right at the moment, in your annual plan. What could be some of the risks that flow from adopting those objectives? Give me an idea. Give me an answer. Thanks, Collie.
Not sure if it's exactly the right place to bring this up, but I think there has to be an alignment with our community as being essentially our shareholders, however you want to put that. Our risk profile needs to align to theirs, so
Yep.
if we're way out of mark and way out of whack with that, then we're not going to be terribly successful in what we do.
Okay, so there's a really critical point there, is if you want to create a direction of for Taupō District Council, what you're really saying is you can't get in front of your community, you've got to take them with you. So one of the uncertainties about an annual plan process or your LTP is actually, will the community accept it? And you do that by way of consultation. Okay, so it is a level of there's a level of future uncertainty. You make a decision in this room, will the crowd go with you? Okay, now the control to that uncertainty is we have a consultation process where it's required, and hopefully that gives us that chance to check in with the community. But if we're going to create a strategy in a Taupō District Council context, one of the uncertainties is will the community accept it? Anything else?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Given what's happening globally at the moment, affordability is going to be a key risk. We make
Yeah,
plans.
that's right.
Whether or not the time we make the plan to when we come to implement
Yeah.
the plan, is it still affordable?
There's a good point there, because you're actually bridging both my little circles there, but you're quite right. And that is that you can determine approach, a strategy, but coming out of that is there is an affordability. Well, there's certainly a funding need. The question is it affordable to your community? And again, that becomes critical in two ways. One, you'll get that sense it's affordable when you do the consultation with the community up front. Do they accept the rate rise you're anticipating? But equally, and we'll come back to this point, but I think you're also hinting at, Kevin, as you try to implement, the cost of implementation might change, and that might create a risk or a threat to your strategy. Okay? So those are the sorts of... Oh, Sandra, go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, unknown legislation from central government.
Yep. Good. I would like to reflect that's not a threat that flows from your strategy. It's dealing with the second one, that there are risks to your strategy or uncertainties to your strategy which aren't derived from the strategy but come from probably your operating environment. And you are dead correct. A rates cap, simplification of local government systems, whatever we call efficiency, whatever we call it, the change to NEMA, what else we got on the plate, RMA reform, building planning. You put all those together, they aren't necessarily risks which flow from your strategy. They are risks, they are uncertainty that threaten your strategy. Okay? Those are all valid uncertainties or risks that this committee as governors should have their eye on. Rightio? And that is our primary function. Do we, in working with Julie and team, have the systems, the processes, the controls, another word, mitigations in place or in hand to limit the impact or the risk of those uncertainties occurring? So that's really, really important in terms of my sense of creating or even protecting value. Everything you want to do for this community generally is good, assuming you've got assuming you've got community buy-in. So our role is to have that governance eye that we will achieve it. That's how we create value, going back to my other use of that word at year end when we check in, have we helped council preserve its position? Does that make sense? Are we all good? Right. Okay, let's go to another one. Let's go to the circle one here. It's another couple of slides on. I won't go into the terms of reference. You've got the terms of reference in the in your agenda pack. If you wanted to raise questions about that, that's fine. Look, just to reflect here, I'm using risk as a system and as a language. I always think about this. I have a son who's a mathematician, and mathematicians always talk about math just being a beautiful language. That's well and truly passed me by. It did at one stage sort of semi-excite me, but once your kid gets to 7th form, you realise that you're pretty, well, I was a dunce anyway at maths. Anyway, so there we go. So it's a bit like that's with risk. Risk is just a language we need to learn. And even in the discussion we've had over the previous slide, you guys are already there. So I would just want to reflect. We start with thinking, and it's not in this, although it's in the heading. We start with what is the opportunity you guys are trying to grab? What is the strategic objective? What is the priority you're after? And we have just done exactly what we should be doing. What from a governance perspective are the uncertainties or the challenges to achieving that? That's that top box. In our papers today, we've got a brilliant bit of analysis by the team on our current strategic risks. Okay, it's called a risk assessment. Simple as that. We actually, and if you read that, I know you read it, in reading particularly the opening section, which is the status of those risks, we have what is the third box there on the bottom right, which are the risk indicators. So with workforce, what are one of those indicators that they've got in there? They've got two of them actually. One is turnover, staff turnover, which is sitting there what? 15.04%. Okay, we'll come back to that number. And I think the second one is engagement. I think engagement is in there. We have good engagement with our staff. That is great news. But it's actually an indicator of us being able to firstly to attract and retain staff. Because again, one of you might have, if we'd think about strategy, we decide to stand in the market, if you will, with the community of delivering objectives, we have to have the right people resource to be able to deliver it. It is generally, for us in local government, a big risk. And indeed, we want to know what are the indicators that the uncertainty of having a competent, qualified workforce isn't at threat or isn't creating a threat to our strategy. Hence, those indicators are really valuable. Certainly, we would probably want to go a bit further when we get to that risk and think more deeply. We might have 15.04%, which sounds quite good. Sounds like about the right number, and good staff engagement. But if we haven't got any water treatment operators, we've got a problem. So, there is a nuanced discussion more that can be had potentially at that level of strategic risk. But the bottom line is, do we have the indicators? Because they create something for us which is objectivity. So it's not just about the size of my gut and how I feel. We actually want to try and put a wee bit of data around where are we at with those risks. Risk appetite's been a big word that we keep using. Can I say I think probably it's an area that as a council, because I can say this is a generalisation, we probably need to pick up the pace a wee bit. But that's another thing. That's not a criticism of us here in Taupō. If it is, it's a criticism of myself as your chair rather than anything else. But we do have within our risk framework this idea of, is this acceptable? So the 15.04 is acceptable to us as being a reasonable rate of turnover. Most organisations have a level of turnover in any 1 year, and we've agreed that that 15% is probably okay. I always reflect here in the bad days after COVID, I think it was with one of my councils, we got up to 30%. Okay, that was not the right number. That is not a good number if you are trying to retain or deal with the risk of a capable, competent workforce able to deliver on your strategy. And that comes back to this weighing it up against what are we comfortable with. And as I say, I think that's something we probably as a group could well come back to at a later stage. Because if you're out of comfort, so when that council hit 30%, we were very uncomfortable. Not only do we not have water treatment operators, and I don't know whether that was the case, but might have been building consent staff, I don't know, something like that. We generally had so much turnover that we recognised our corporate knowledge, our ability to retain information generally was being lost because good staff were walking. What is it? The Great Resignation, we called it after COVID or something, wasn't it? And we were really affected by it. So actually you get to that last box in the circle at about, I'm trying to remember my clock, it's about 11 o'clock, isn't it? About 10 o'clock on that diagram. If we are outside appetite, we have to do something as governors, don't we? If we had 30% turnover, wouldn't we have to do something? Okay, so there's the value of this. We identify the uncertainties that stop us delivering or creating value for our community. We think about actually what does good look like, and it's a level of turnover, but it's not rampant. We measure ourselves against those indicators and see that we are comfortable with the result. And if we're not, if we're uncomfortable, we have to have a chat and decide, is there something that we need to do about that? By the way, that council decided it had to increase its pay rates, actually out of interest, amongst other things, because actually it was recognising that it was paying below market. And their exit interview showed that people were leaving because, quite frankly, they get better money elsewhere. That was challenging for that council, because obviously it made a rate increase. But the bottom line was, if we wanted to continue operating and being viable, we needed to do something about it. And I'm glad to say their indicators aren't too far different to ours. So they're in a good place now. Sandra?
Thanks, Bruce. You say we're governors, not managers.
Mm-hmm.
In a scenario like that, is it up to us to ask whereabouts the churn is, and talk about that? That is appropriate. Because I mean, you know, you say 15%. It's still, when you look at the actual figure, you know, on our staff, that's a lot of people. That's, you know, 50 odd people, which is a high number in I think anybody's world. Is it a specific area of our staff that are going, or is it across the board?
Yeah.
So those are the questions that are we able to answer? I beg your pardon, are we able to ask?
Yeah. So I think in the first issue, one of the things that we do is certainly we need to be conscious of our role as governors. But actually, and this comes back to another slide we'll get to, our role is to ask some, I guess in some sense, some hard questions to staff. Are we happy with this? What, you know, or rather, you know, is 15% okay? Now, I want to say that the committee works. In fact, perhaps we should go to it straight now, because you're touching on a very good question. Keep going. Keep going. We've got a long way through, actually. Stop. Go back. One more. There we are. That's what I'm after there. Okay. Thank you. I just want to reflect something here, because it is important, and it's great. You've had some governance coaches and talking to you about this, haven't you? It is something of a question. How far could you go in your questioning? The answer is generally this: we are dealing with the big issues that could stop us. As governors, in any form of corporate governance, you look at this here, you have a role to ask searching questions. But I want to reflect something about this. We are working with management, not against them. If we think that this committee, or any of our committees, quite frankly, or council, is about trying to find management out, we are doing this the wrong way round. We are trying to work with management to ensure that we deliver for the community. So, in short, I think it is reasonable to ask that general question. Okay, 15%, is that okay? Why is it okay? Do we have any exposure in certain areas? Now, I expect an honest answer, okay, out of staff, and I'm sure we'll get one. But this is the preachy bit from Bruce. We have to have a safe environment in this room, okay? And a safe environment occurs generally through three things. One, to use the old rugby analogy, which is slightly sexist, you play the ball, not the man. Okay, it's one of the most critical. We need to focus on the issue. The second thing is, and it's a corollary of that, you respect the messenger. I don't know of anybody, and I could say this faithfully, of any staff member in this room who doesn't come to work, do a good job. And I respect that. And indeed, they're my solution if there is something to happen and there is something to be resolved. So we respect staff. And the third thing I say is we must be solution focused. Now that council had to grip up on the fact that we had high turnover. And the governors had to grip up. We need to rate more to pay our staff a fair wage. They grabbed that. That was the solution. So if we're dealing with issues, we have to be, I believe, solution focused. So we deal with the issue, we respect the messenger, and we are solution focused. If that's the case, we will have what I call a safe environment where we can ask these searching questions. If we don't go by those principles, I won't allow the question. That's a test on me, but that's where I'll come from a committee discipline perspective, if I can put it in that sort of heavy term. That's why I say I'm preaching at you. So that's how I see it. Now, I think one of the things that we do is we take plenty of time in this committee. We have time to go through those big risks. It is a chance, an appropriate time to ask critical questions. But I do want you to also reflect that actually some questions are getting close or do get under the bonnet. You know, governors have the right to ask questions if there is a problem or something's not going right. Okay? I don't have any trouble with that personally, and I would say that as a person that inducts councils. But we have to be wary of it and be careful by playing by the rules that I think I've outlined. Okay? Anyway, that's the preachy part. Hey, that's almost got me to the end. Can we go back, please, to just that one there? Just want to reflect a couple of things here. So I was dealing with that sort of circle, that idea of risk as a language. I just want to reflect. I've talked almost solely so far about the top of that triangle, which is strategic risks. So they're the big things that we focus on as a committee. The thing is that as a council, there are many other risks that are being run, okay? And the hard news is that actually you're accountable for all risks. But again, this comes back, Sandra, to this idea of governance versus management. You haven't got time. I haven't got time, not our role, to actually look at each of those risks and work out whether staff are doing the right thing or not, okay? Our role is to be satisfied that there is an appropriate system or process to govern our risk environment. So we focus on the big ones, and there are, sorry Sarah, I can't remember, 11 of them, 10 of them. And for the rest, it's to understand, do we have a risk approach, do we have a system or process to managing those risks? That tends to come in the very good reporting, again, that we've got inside this report around our assurance matrix, okay, our plan. So there's a paper in there that talks about lines of defence, and indeed we have an assurance program that gives us an insight into whether the controls and processes that you'd expect to have inside a council are operating. And indeed in PX there's one or two good reports there that suggest there are areas where we may want to pick up and improve things, if I can put it that in a broad sense. But let's bear in mind we'll come to that when we get into PX. So in fact, we need to identify the big risks. We need to be aware that we are running a whole bunch of other risks. So we need to have a program of assurance that the general systems and processes and controls we'd expect to have in place are. And that comes in on a whole number of different ways. The column there is the emerging risk. And that's something which, and again, thank you, Sarah, that the guys have started to do that within our risk paper. I think there's a couple of emerging risks there that have been identified for us. So risk is about looking forward. It's about anticipating what are the uncertainties, and you've given me that when we've thought about risks from strategy or risks to strategy. But actually we need to even go further if we can, which what is over the horizon probably we can't see entirely. We don't know whether it'll be a risk or not. But actually, can we anticipate what might be there? And there's a couple of items in our paper today, which is really important. So we need to have, in the long run, an understanding about our role, that we are here dealing with future uncertainties. It's gaining assurance that they are under control. It's about having an honest conversation, working with management, but with those ideas that actually we focus on the issue, we respect the messenger, the staff member, and we are solution focused. We've got a problem, what's the best way to fix it? Let's come up with some ideas. And I have been in committees where we've come up with some good questions, but actually some good solutions as well. Okay, that's me. Anybody want to make any comment, challenge, question? No? That's good. Rightio, that's with that, I think I can leave it there. The formal terms of reference are there. I've had a wee read of them. I'm pretty happy with them. You actually really let me have a look at them before anyway, so if they're not right, I probably am in a problem there. That's it? Good. Rightio, let's go to the resolution, which is that we just received the information. Perhaps I'll move it and somebody might second me to say they've heard it. Thank you, appreciate that. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Brilliant. Rightio, we're down to business now. That's the once in a trinium discussion, guys. The rest is now all doing. Absolutely. G'day, Jeanette, how are you? Got a few things here with you, which is great. Thank you for your hard yards. I'll leave it in your hands to take us through the audit engagement. We've got about 3 big documents to work through, if I recall correctly. So we'll once you've given a chance to have a quick chat, we'll just go through those step by step, if that's okay. So in your hands, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The first item on the agenda is the Audit Management Report for 2024-25 Annual Report. This report has changed compared to previous years. Now they only give us a report on the new items that they have want to bring to our attention, and they've also expanded it into 2 reports. There was a governor's report, which I think you got at the adoption of the annual report, and there's this report which is more to management, but we bring that to the Risk and Assurance Committee. So it's quite a short report. There's 4 new items, but I have put the status of the previous items in there. We don't get a report on those, but I got the information from Audit New Zealand, and those items are managed through Louisa's biannual report, I think, on outstanding audit items. So she'll cover those off in June in her report. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. As always, Jeanette, you've been very kind to say, Bruce, you're one step ahead in the agenda. I always try and miss a paper for some reason. We're dealing with the results, clearly, of the last audit. So do we have questions for Jeanette about the report from the auditors? I've got a couple, Jeanette, if that's okay. It's actually because this is a common problem with contractors. If I looked at the first one, it's a recommendation that we ensure we upgrade our getting documentary evidence on roading contracts. So photographs, signed checklists, key documents, sign-offs, etc. It made me wonder, why have we made payment to the contractor if we haven't got that in the first place?
I'm looking at Tony.
So, I mean, Tony, can I be honest, I'm being bitten by this at the moment with a major contractor because we aren't getting as-built, we aren't getting the photos, and we are not paying until we do. So my question, if the auditor's saying we haven't got this information, have we paid the contractor? And if so, why?
Yeah, certainly without going through that particular instance, I know that certainly we've changed our contract documents quite some time ago around ensuring that we receive practical completion. Don't issue practical completion until we've got as-builts and we're happy with the as-builts. And I imagine there may be some historical contracts that we're still running that might have been impacted by previous contract clauses, but certainly that's something that we've been enforcing for quite some time.
Look, I take this on advice, and I don't presume the auditors found anything here that said we paid money that we shouldn't have. But to me, this seemed like we're looking at stuff here that I would, in a perfect world, and things aren't always perfect, and it's certainly in the case that I'm thinking of, it's not perfect. You'd expect these to be on file before, as you say, practical completion was made, and we release money from our bank account. So this is medium. I just sort of felt like it might be a bit more important in my mind than medium in terms of the auditor. So I just passed it on.
Yeah, through the chair, there's actually quite a number, and because you don't have the full list here of actions related to assets, there are quite a number in relation to assets, and that needs to be a big piece of work for council, particularly walking into a regulated environment and what the regulator will expect when we're trying to convince them that our work program is the right thing to be doing. But we have had meetings, and as Tony had said, originally it was the team that raised some of the old contracts weren't working for an as-built perspective, and some of the challenges there, but the challenges in that asset space go a lot wider, and we do need to resource that work. And I know Tony and the team have been doing a lot of improvements as well, but there is a larger improvement plan that needs to be developed in relation to assets in general.
Rachel?
Just on there, is that provision included in our contracts with contractors, that practical completion won't be signed off until I put it in my contracts for projects. I don't pay people until I've got their producer statements and all their as-builts, and it's in our contracts to that effect. Is that how you're looking at things?
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct.
Rachel, I think in fairness, I mean, I've gone straight to what I got concerned about, whether we're paying money without all the stuff. I want to reflect, this is actually saying we need to make certain we have it recorded somewhere. Because I think, in fairness to the auditor, I think they were talking as much about our record management and systems, albeit if we didn't have them, it raised for me the questions about have we actually paid correctly. That's all.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I guess my point was it's very hard to extract that unless you've got a contract
That's
to
right.
enforce it.
Yeah.
So just,
Yeah.
I guess, supporting your stance there.
Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, just sorry, through the chair, and the other link, as you just mentioned, was the document management. So we've got a document management system upgrade that'll be completed in about February 2027, we hope. So again, I suspect that the roading team were also dealing with the fact that we all save information in different places. So when the contract manager saves documentation, that it may just have been an auditor access issue as well. So yes,
I appreciate
agree with that.
Yeah.
And just through the chair, if you don't mind, also to add another layer of audit that we do have, we've just actually had a procedural audit from NZTA literally this last week, and through the transport
Yeah.
team. So they also do go through fine-tooth comb.
Great, yeah, and I presume, Tony, somewhere down the track we'll get a chance to see the results of any corrective actions they might have or might not have recommended somewhere down the track. It's part of our assurance. My second question, Jeanette, and I've forgotten how to be an accountant these days, but the journal one, I didn't understand what sort of journals either they're critiquing or we're trying to pass. The only reason I wanted to just dive slightly into this is that we are disagreeing with the auditor. Now, I totally, we are entitled to disagree with the auditor, indeed not follow their recommendations, but I do treat it slightly seriously that actually, what is the risk of us not following their recommendations? So, but first of all, I need to understand what is the problem. I couldn't decodify with my limiting or ageing knowledge about what actually are the journals that are at risk here.
So through the chair, when we prepare the annual report, we do a trial balance from the system, and when we went on to CI Anywhere, we did expand our natural account codes to try and take account of any of the manual adjustments that we'd been doing in the past for different categorisation in the annual report. For example, audit fees being split out by engagement.
Yeah.
So we've actually got natural accounts we code the annual report to, we code the long-term plan to, whereas before it just went into audit fees. So we've tried to minimise that as much as possible. However, there are still some things that we have to recategorise for reporting purposes, things like the makeup of our investments, internal charges. So we charge ourselves for rates, for water rates, for refuse disposal, and that goes against an expense code and it's an income, and in an annual report you offset them. But for our operations, if we did a journal to offset them, then it's distorting what the managers are seeing in their accounts because we've removed it. So that's the basis of our disagreement, is that we don't believe that some of the adjustments we're doing almost warrant doing a journal in the system because it stuffs up our operating reporting.
Right. I just look, I mean, this is where, I mean, I appreciate, and I should just reflect our audit director is an apology today, although they'd well signalled that she got from the previous paper they couldn't be here. We just need to make, I mean, I'll back you in the sense, Jeanette, sorry, it's not even a case of backing. I get it. I just think we just need to clear this out with them. It'd be good when Louise comes back with the overall outstanding recommendations. Just note, we've had a discussion, we've agreed a position. It doesn't, we're not at risk here, which is really the key thing I was trying to work through, is are we going to fail to account for something? Is there money out the door at the worst? That is not the issue here. So I just think it's a small matter that actually would be useful just to know at the next meeting when we get the open audit recommendations that this has been closed off with the auditor. If that's okay, please. Thank you. And land work in progress. Made sense to me that we had land work in progress. I take it as formations work and what have you that we all capitalise. It doesn't seem to be a big problem, does it?
No, the audit point actually relates to something that they found and we fixed.
Oh, okay, right.
And then at the end of the audit, we still had some money sitting in work in progress, and it was valid. It was for work we'd done on a reserve that wasn't finished at balance date.
Yeah.
So yeah, I personally thought it was a bit odd that they raised an audit point for something that we'd fixed, but...
Okay, good. Well, I'm not going to get too worried.
And yeah, through the chair, that was our complicated transactions in relation to our East Urban land. So obviously a little bit different for council to be accounting for that as inventory, and you for our team. So it was literally a misstatement which was corrected. So no harm done, but yeah, again, they've mentioned to keep an eye on it, which I did ask Jeanette to try and get removed because I thought that was a little bit.
Okay, yeah, fair point. We had that debate about investment property versus inventories for sale, etc. But the idea of having a WIP balance that is about formation of land and what have you, I'd have thought, given our circumstances, is not odd. So I didn't really have too much trouble with our side of the equation on this one. Okay, that's cool.
So, Bruce,
Kim.
Apologies if this is slightly off beam, but I get your questions, I get the responses. This flows into what happened last year in terms of these are relatively small items in the whole big scheme of things.
That's right.
But you add a whole lot of these together and you see the blowout we had in the cost of the audit.
Yeah.
And I just, from an assurance point of view, ratepayers are paying an enormous amount of extra money for assurance that's not providing any assurance. And that really concerned me last year. And I made a little bit of a song and dance about it. I don't want to have to do the same again this year, but those kind of things cumulatively add up to fairly big numbers, as you'll see in
the next
again,
paper.
Exactly. So it's leading to the next paper,
Yeah.
but what the budget is and what the actuals were last year, I'd love to see the actuals for this year reflect what the budget is. Anyway.
I look, I congratulate them. Two things. One, Jeanette, which is that we did get a report with the opinion, which is a massive step up by our auditors, which is superb. It's good that we get this as well. I guess it's all a bit shorthand, because I am conscious that I immediately started thinking about a payment, for instance, and whether we had the valid stuff, whereas if they'd put more context, it might have helped us a wee bit. So it's to find that balance between enough information, but equally not overkilling it, because again, I come back to your point, the more they have to write, the more it's costly. So I take your point.
Can I just ask a
Yes,
question? How long have these guys been our auditor? And my supplementary question to that is, are we restricted to them being our auditor? Sorry, just another entity.
Hold that question, Kylie, till we get to the next paper, because that's actually where we're dealing with the engagement of Audit New Zealand, and we'll deal with that then. So we've got a couple of points. We've got the fee, and we've got why have we got Audit New Zealand, which is good questions, so we'll deal with that then. Let's just clear this one out then. So look, this is going to come back to us, as you say, Jeanette, through Louise's report next time about the open action items. You've got a sense from us as to where we've got to. So the motion is that we receive the report. We've got a mover and a seconder for that, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kylie. Seconder. Thanks, Rachel. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Brilliant. Right, now we can have a crack. No, we're not going to have a crack. We're going to have a discussion. Now we're back up to where I thought we were, which is we've got three documents, the engagement and fee proposal plus the annual plan for the, sorry, should be careful with you, that's not my phone. We've got the approach the auditor will take, they call it, I think, their annual plan for the audit of 25, 26. Jeanette, your briefing, please.
So every 3 years, the Auditor General appoints our auditor, and that's the first attachment that you've got where they've appointed Audit New Zealand as our auditor. Just as an aside, in case it comes up, we've also been advised that the CCOs have been appointed with Silks again, which is a small, an accounting firm out of Wanganui, and they've done the last 3 years. And then once the auditor's been appointed, they develop their audit engagement proposal and the audit plan, and they pass those all by management before they're finalised for presentation to the Risk and Assurance Committee. I know that Liz Tomlinson, who's our auditor, did try and meet with Julie and John, but that's unsuccessful at this stage due to commitments, but Liz has met with both Sarah and I to discuss the audit. We have the team that we've been given is a newish team, but we've still got, as an assistant manager, one of the auditors from the previous audit, and we've had him for several years. That's Carter. He's still on the audit, and some of the person that does the IT systems audit is the same person as well. The audit fee is on a par with last year. It's got a little bit of inflation in it. They've got something extra in there that they've fully discounted, and it's within our audit plan budget for audit. So that's okay. Liz Tomlinson apologises that she couldn't come today because she had another commitment, but she has provided a memo to yourselves on what her approach and what the documents are. So I'm sort of happy to take questions. but I'm sure we can work through the documents.
We do need to, we actually have a decision making right here, so it is a wee bit difficult. I mean, this is not a criticism because Liz well communicated that she couldn't be here today, so we just have to recognise that. It might be that we have to send you back with a question, but I'll leave that to I think. Can I just make a couple of open sort of contextual comments, which may partly go to where you're at, Liz, or even you, Kevin, although yours has got a slightly different angle, Kevin. In this, we're a price taker. Okay, number one. There are limited grounds to complain and overturn because all power sits in the Auditor General's hands. I have been, of course, on the other side of this, so I know this firsthand. I know what it's like when a person complains. There is a statutory basis to complain, but I've never seen the other side win. Key, I think, in this, and we'll come back to this when we get particularly the annual plan, is actually, and it sounds slightly aggressive, but it's the performance of us as a team and the performance of the auditors as a team. That's going to be the critical part of this audit, and I think it would be fair to say, Kevin, in the past, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Particularly if I was to look at it from the perspective of how we felt we got on with the audit team or not. So the performance is reasonably important. The Auditor General is a new Auditor General. He became the Auditor General halfway through last year, and he has gone through a process of re-looking at who are the auditors. So this is slightly relevant to your question, Kylie. And it was based around water reform. And out of interest, what he decided was that the local authorities within if they're combined for water operations, would all have a common auditor. So Waikato Waters will have a common auditor, as an audit firm. And that audit firm will also do the water company. So there has been quite a reallocation amongst the audit providers. So that's Deloitte, EY and Audit New Zealand. So the Auditor General, using his own initiative, has looked at that. Obviously, in our case, has reaffirmed from his perspective that Audit New Zealand should be our audit provider. As I say, to some extent, we're a taker on that decision rather than anything else. So that's the background to that, and the reason he went through that process is that we got to the end of a 3-year engagement cycle with Audit New Zealand last year. So we have this letter in here called the engagement letter, which is sort of a memorandum of understanding, if you will. It's actually probably a bit more than that, between us and the Auditor General, recognising that we're using Audit New Zealand with a whole bunch of respective responsibilities. Okay, so that's what we've got here. Let me just take us through this, and Kevin and Kylie, come back to your questions because you probably have more to have there. If you go to page 48 of your agenda, this is what is called the engagement letter. So it's for the 3 years from now, 26, through to the end of 28. And it's setting up the basic framework on which the Auditor General engages with us. Okay? And I mean, you've had a chance to read it. I was interested, by the way, in the composition of the audit team. I personally don't know Liz, but she's come through their ranks. I noticed that we've got Norde, and I think we all know, a good number of us know Norde, and he's provided good service elsewhere. So it's good that along with the chap you mentioned, I think it's a chap, Carter, that you mentioned being consistent, even though there's a change, we've got people that are experienced in local government, which is the least we can ask if change needs to occur. I'm also aware that the quality reviewer is the person that's provided audit services to another client of mine, and that's been a good relationship. So from a local government experience perspective, we've got a reasonable team here is what I would fashion. Actually, sorry, that's actually on the fee proposal. I'm looking, where's that engagement letter? Have we got an engagement letter in here?
Yeah, it was on the page.
It was on the page I said? Oh, it is too. Oh, no, it's not actually, sorry. It's the one prior, actually. My mistake. It's page 33. Oh, is it? And I'm just going off the printed copy. So it's the audit engagement letter I'm looking at rather than the proposal. So the big thing here with this engagement letter is in the schedules, which starts, or again, mine is page 40 again. I don't know which yours is on, which talks about our respective responsibilities. And actually, the critical thing is we can't, through the auditor, contract it out of our responsibility to prepare truthful, faithful and transparent external accountability documents. It's our role. We can't contract out of prevention of fraud. If fraud occurs, we first have to look at ourselves and not just say where was the auditor, for instance. So it's just, I guess, ground truthing what an audit is and what an audit isn't and where the responsibility lies. I've had a quick look through those schedules. There's nothing in those schedules that is, shall we say, nothing's out of the ordinary in that. It's standard stuff. It's an important document because sometimes, very rarely, there is a bit of push and shove. This becomes the foundational document between the respective responsibilities. We need to sign it. If we don't sign it, they won't do the audit. You might say, John, that's a good thing. We don't have to pay a fee, but I can assure you that the Department of Internal Affairs might have something to say about that. Is there any questions you want to? So I just want to knock this quickly. Engagement letter. Any questions or comments on that? We're good. Rightio. Sorry about that. Now we will go back to what was page 48, which is the suggestion of what they're wanting to charge us. So let's deal with any questions on that. We've talked about the price taker. We've got the fee, both ours and what have you, in sections 5 and 6, and we've been asked to say it's okay. Kevin.
So just coming back to my point, I get it, we're a price taker and all of the trump cards sit with the other party.
That's right, more or less.
I get that, but I also look at that on bullet point number 5, and for me it's on page 50 of our agenda. For the total audit hours, budget for last year was 1201. The actual was 350 hours above that. Yeah. And I guess my question is, what additional value has been added to us, to Audit New Zealand, to the government, or to ratepayers by another 350 hours? And I know from talking to our executive, this is not because staff were difficult to deal with or made it hard for auditors to do their job. It was around some of the issues that were being dealt with. Again, I'm conscious we don't hold any of the cards, but you'd have to wonder what value is being added for the attention being paid to some of the issues for 350 additional hours. That's all.
Did we pay for those additional hours, Sarah?
Through the chair, we did come up with an agreement with Leon this year on 50-50 split. Yeah. Last year we did not pay for the additional hours and we did push back. I just want to probably come back to Councillor Taylor's point. I probably don't think it's fair that we aren't to blame at all for increased hours. Coming back to those comments around our asset, the challenge is getting some of that asset information. They do spend a lot of time in there and there is a lot of improvement work that we need to do. Not just for audit purposes, but for us, for regulatory purposes, for how we manage our assets. So totally appreciate that we aren't exactly perfect. As you know, there's a number of items outstanding. It is a good news story Jeanette presented in the last item where we have had that reducing, but there are still a number of items outstanding from an audit improvement perspective. And if you'll remember last year at this committee, we brought to you actually a slowdown of our focus on that in the current environment because the team just can't do everything. So just wanted to recognise that first, so we're certainly not completely to blame there. There's been a number of things over the years, and Bruce and I were just talking about this before the meeting, including a valuation expert on the auditor's side that has taken a lot more time, not only on their side actually, but from our side, and has cost us a lot more. So it's cost us a lot more with our valuer, and then it's cost us a lot more because we pay for their independent expert. Now we have agreed as part of this fee proposal that the auditor expert will be dropped this year. So they will be relying on our valuer in our valuation to advise whether our assets are the appropriate value. So. And then probably the two things Jeanette didn't mention while I've got the microphone. A little bit of a change proposed and we will be coming to you with a change in accounting policies on the valuation assumption around infrastructure. Now that a number of years ago, councils used to value their infrastructure 5 yearly, and the accounting standard says that, for sufficient regularity. There certainly seems to be an acceptance by audit now that we might be able to move that back a little bit, particularly in the current environment. So we're proposing to do roading, partially because the team have made a lot of changes in their roading database and we think it's appropriate, and then also because waters is excluded from the rates capped environment and we would hate to see roading go up substantially, and we've left the valuation longer than we needed to. So that was that one, and then just probably mentioning the timeframes, and I know Jeanette's team's really excited to get back to statutory deadlines, and they really want to, but I just recognise with the finance team and the pressure they're under from the water separation and all the other stuff that's going on, change in disclosures from your systems improvement bill, that's a lot of work you're fitting in now the 10 months of work, the 12 months of work in 10 months from an annual report program. So excited to get back to it, but at the same time recognising the pressure that will put on our team to get everything done in time.
So in that, Kevin, and just again, it's your question. So 379 was the budget last year, and we paid 413. So that's reflecting some of the additional stuff that you've said, some of the stuff we're avoiding. So they're basing it back on the 25 fee and adding, in effect, 3.9% for salaries and wages. Right? That's because the EQCR, don't get too worried about what that is, but essentially it's coming to, well, it's actually really important to be honest, but particularly with a new director. But that's coming at essentially 3.9% increase over last year. Kylie, this goes to your question. I've just received a similar letter at a different council from a different provider, and they have gone with exactly the same number, a 3.9% increase. I suspect the Auditor General has said you've got to cap your increase at 3.9%. So we aren't, in that sense, any worse off in terms of being with our auditor. So to be honest, it makes some sense. I did wonder cynically whether the 3.9 fits within the 4% rate cap, but that's another thing. At least symbolically it does. Jeanette, my question was, I flipped the page and I think you've got to this, Sarah. They're making a whole bunch of assumptions in this audit fee. Okay, and that's actually assumptions about us and our performance. You're perhaps hinting, Sarah, that we might have some challenges, and Jeanette, you're welcome to comment on this, to be able to meet all those assumptions?
No, so I think from I was mentioning we're probably not perfect, yeah. was my mention. I think we will be okay, and what we agreed to last year, which I've asked Liz to continue this year, is managing of that budget so things are raised early on. So if they can't get data, for instance, on our roading surface, that gives us the opportunity to intervene early and find another way to get them rather than them going back and forth. So we did make that agreement, and hence why the overrun was a lot less than in previous years, because we had early intervention into matters. So I'm not so worried, and we do propose the same approach. And then given we've removed the valuer expert, which was a lot of back and forth on both sides, I'm confident that we can meet our obligations and hopefully come in line with that fee.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's good news. Okay, any other question then around the fees, or essentially the fee proposal, and the assumptions that are sitting behind it? So then let's just move quickly. We don't need to look at the letter that came to me. It was, I was very grateful that Liz sent me that, but I wonder if we could then move to the annual plan. Is there anything in terms of the annual plan then that we need to discuss? You've mentioned so Liz is showing where she wants to focus. It's come back to the fixed assets. You've explained well what you're doing with the fixed assets, and hopefully that's reasonably clear to the committee here, which then tends to make me focus on the near enough to the last page, which is the deadlines, or sorry, not deadlines, the milestones, the actual calendar dates on which performance is going to occur. Obviously, this has been prepared by Liz in agreement with you guys. Okay, so folk, I'm looking at my page 82, 83. It's the last 2 pages of that report from Liz. Those are the dates that things are going to occur. So adoption on the 27th, and you work back from October, and you work back from there in terms of actually when things will occur. Folk, any questions on the actual plan for the 25-26 audit? Kylie?
Given the pressures you've said to us, Sarah, are these dates realistic?
Yeah, through the chair, this has been to the team and they have committed to these dates. I guess I'm recognising my nervousness in this respect, just given all the other work program, but I know Jeanette and the team are putting plans in place to ensure that they can meet those dates. But yes, given challenges particularly in the asset area and the fact we do have an infrastructure revaluation this year, I am nervous in this respect.
Jeanette, I wonder... Oh, sorry, Kevin?
Oh,
No, you go first.
Just a query. I'm hoping I'm on the same page. You're talking about the focus areas. Okay. And I'm looking at the second and fourth ones there. And I just wonder, given that we are having to have complete balance sheet, staffing, service delivery, separation of water assets, and yet from an audit point of view we've got service performance information for response times for 3 waters and roading.
Yeah.
So does that, I just wonder, so as long as we're clear there's no conflict there, so we're having to separate out all our water stuff, but then from an audit point of view they appear to be tied. Or am I misreading that? And I hope I am. And the other one, fair value assessment of land and building and 3 waters assets. So they appear to be tied in, but happy for an answer.
Through the chair, so financial separation is our next annual report, so 30th of June 2027. And so that's what the team have been working on, because of course the financial year starts 1st of July. So understand the crossover seems confusing, but we actually haven't figured out as well, audit haven't figured out, the sector haven't figured out, given we are operating in-house or propose to operate in-house, where audit start and finish, whether we're going to get our water service strategy audited. So all of those things we're not quite sure, given the interrelations between, council as a whole, council without waters and then waters, how it's all going to work from which bits auditing.
So just again through the chair, so I guess part of the reason for my question is on Thursday this week we have our first water services committee, and there's going to be, I suspect, given some of the items here in the audit, some overlap. They won't be concentric circles, they'll be very much overlapping with full council, with the water services and with this committee around the sort of things we're looking at and what our engagement will be with audit. So be interested to see how that all pans out.
And look, a wee bit from I can't give you any advice on that one at the moment, Kevin, because we're finding out with all of them. I'm only actually involved in the setup of a water company, and that is requiring discussion. I mean, admittedly, it's a 1 July one this year. It's Te Aki Wai, what it's worth. That's requiring engagement with the auditor now for the company and its creation. We've got a year out, so we've got a wee bit of time, but that is undoubtedly a real question for which, well, nobody's quite got the answer at the moment. It's really what it comes down to. We have to watch the space, I guess. Look, Jeanette, I'd welcome at the June meeting perhaps just a bit of a status update in terms of our work, our plan to get this through. You know, I think if I can put my solution hat focused on, I'm very keen we try to work through that you do deliver on this time, because the reality of it is the water stuff, Kevin, is going to go well past 31 October, and you're into your LTP, so it's actually corporately to our benefit, let alone the pressure that's on you guys to have this nailed within these timelines. Sarah, I don't. It will be a more difficult discussion if we think we're going to breach that deadline in June, but we're better to look at it in June and face that issue then collectively as to how we get over it than sitting here in September or October when we got to say, oh, we're going to go past deadline, because then it's too late. So perhaps when it comes to June, Jeanette, we just have a good honest conversation. Are we going to be able to deliver on time, or, you know, I mean, you'll be a long way through it now by then, but actually have we got signs that we've got trouble? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's through the chair. That's a good plan. I just, I guess, nervousness will still be that we're building the plane and flying at the same time. So the person who does our annual report, for example, they are out at the moment 1 day a week just trying to put together the waters reporting and working with a consultant on that system separation. So while that's all going well, that's fine. But as we're getting new information and some of the working through some more complicated aspects, we're kind of learning information as we go. So that's probably my nervousness, which I think Jeanette can report on, and they're confident with their plan. But just we're building the plane and flying it. So we're waiting to find out what the parts are.
So I was preaching to myself there about being very solution focused and looking at the issue in the eye, but trying to find a way through it if we have to in June. And you're welcome to come back to the committee in the interim if that's the case too.
Well, that was my question: is, you know, when will we be flagged about that so that we can support you? Yeah.
I did actually just have one question to cut to the chase, which was Kevin's already focused on that, is the service performance information for response to Three Waters in particular. Is that an issue? Do we know now we're going to get, we have a qualification there? Have we got the information, or are we okay? I mean, might as well cut to the chase on this one.
I think, didn't we
This is the response time, you know, to call-outs. Likely. So we need to, I mean, I think what I'm trying to reflect here is there's no point in us trying to recreate information if at the end of the day we're still going to get qualified. You know, what I'm trying to say is I'm giving you a bit of, I should be careful. I would recommend that we give you the licence just to call it. If it really is a case that we can't satisfy ourselves we've got suitable data, let's call it now and have a negotiation discussion with our auditor that we're going to get qualified on this.
Yeah, through the chair, that's the approach we have taken the last few years. I guess there had been a reluctance on audit side, and I totally get it, that you don't just give up and qualify, that you do try and get the information to get a clear audit report. But it is incredibly challenging with our after hours service, and then how that data is recorded. We have just gone to a new system, but from my understanding, and Tony's got an update by the looks, we haven't still fully integrated our contractor in that, and I think Tony's looking at next stage from a contract perspective and whether that'll be included. But
yes, through the chair, if you recall, quite some time ago we talked about some of the challenges with Asset Finder, and I can confirm that we have upgraded to the latest version on there, so we've made some progress in ensuring that we've got a lot more accurate information, and certainly working with our current maintenance contractor, we'd identified where we had a few challenges. So I'm not going to go into technical terms, but we're using an API which allows systems to speak to each other, and I know that we've got a lot more accuracy now with those after hours, working with our maintenance contractor Richard Downer in relation to the documents that they actually keep on site, and using a lot more of their we've actually presented some of that, I think, to audit, if I remember rightly, where we've been provide evidence of when they did go to site, when they did get a call, rather than simply saying we just can't do it. So we have made huge amounts of progress in that space. Still more to do.
Okay, so let's treat that as a likely rather than definite. So, thank you. You have corrected me quite rightly, Sarah, that we just can't give up. And we shouldn't be giving up professionally in your making plans, because in fact, Kevin, going back to your needs, you're going to inherit this system anyway, and you'll need it for accountability.
Pretty much, and just leveraging off your question, and I don't want to delve down too much into the weeds here, but is this a data recording and retrieving issue, or is it a actual response issue? Because if it's an actual response issue, then it comes to the next question back is, are the measures that we're putting in place setting us up to fail, in which case automatically we're going to get a qualified audit report. But see the logic in that?
Yeah, through the chair, it's not a service response issue. It is a data collection in an auditable state issue, and part of that is our after-hours service provider, and we do have a contract renewal up this year. Part of it has been we were working in an old system, and we've just upgraded internally our customer system, and then part of it's the after-hours contractor. So there's been a bit, and we've been working towards being able to accurately provide this information to audit in a fashion that they can audit it, because we still believe our information is accurate, right? It's just auditing of that. But from a resolution perspective, even if we had all of the parts lined up this year, obviously the year's already been, so I imagine that will be an almost certain qualification.
Okay, good. So it's a fair point. They're going to have to audit it, and there's going to be naturally some questions which, Tony, you and the team will presumably have to field. But equally, we need to find an efficient way through that rather than going to the nth degree. It's easy for me to say it, isn't it? But all I'm trying to say is, how do we cut to the chase? And it goes back to your point, Kevin, not waste either their time or our time for something that we can't prove. Okay, Jeanette, so look, to pick up Rachel's point, if there are challenges and risks identified early about actually achieving the timeline, perhaps we should have something circulated to the committee, but even potentially a call to see whether there's something we need to sanction or support you guys try and correct that. But with that then, we have a resolution on page 31 of the agenda, which is that we approve the audit engagement and audit proposal. So we've talked about that. So the fee, by the way, is only, I think, for 2 years, not the 3 years of the engagement, because they'll want to negotiate a new agreement, because that comes back to your point, Kevin. It's a different world for us in 28. We delegate, and we're asking John to sign the appropriate documentation, because John, it's your signature, not mine, that they need, and that we approve the plan for the 25-26 annual report in the way that we've discussed. I'll move that from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Kylie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's setting us up for a fair chunk of the year. Jeanette, the financial strategy update, please.
So most of you will have seen this in the council reports. It's part of the council report, monthly report. It's basically a document that just highlights the key metrics that we report against on areas of financial risk around our borrowings, our investment portfolio, our rates collection, and any commentary.
Thank you. So look, this is a good start. I'm very keen, and it might be that we think about how we report on this relative to our affordability risk. I'm deeply appreciative that in the committee we see this, because it does raise questions about our financial strategy, and that we want to be in a certain position in a future state, and this is giving us a sense of whether we're tracking towards that or not. Are there any questions or comments folk would like to raise? I think, given it's been elsewhere before, I think at this stage I'm happy that we move on, and the resolution is that we receive the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Thanks, Kylie. Thank you, Rachel. Well, thank you, Kevin. I'll let you choose which, Shani. All those in favour, please say aye. That's carried. Thank you. Can we go to the Treasury update report, Jeanette, please?
Sure. This report is basically provided to us by Bancorp Treasury Services and Forsyth Bar. So just to let you know who they are in case you're not aware, Bancorp is our independent Treasury advisors who work for many local government authorities in New Zealand. They advise on interest rate risk management to help us keep our interest cost low, and I think in the report there's actually a demonstration of how that has dropped over the last 2 to 3 years. They also provide economic updates, which is the beginning of this report, and they also monitor our various debt liquidity ratios and our investment profile. They also help us at long-term plan time with our Treasury policy, just reviewing that and providing any suggested amendments to it. Forsyth Bar are our appointed fund managers for the TEL fund. So they provide us with a quarterly report and also the ESG report, which has been tabled with you because I think it was inadvertently left from the report.
Thank you. That's wonderful, Jeanette. Okay, folks, so this is about are we within our limits, etc. Along with obviously the investment side has been important. Any questions for Jeanette at all?
Do you mind, Jeanette, just for the benefit of our new members, what was the initial TEL fund that went to Forsyth Bar to where we are today? Because I think it's, personally, I think it's something that we should all be fairly proud of, with the work that you guys put in to lead us in that direction to do the best for our community.
Through the chair, I think the fund was at around $64 million when we put it with Forsyth Bar. At the end of February, it was 82.7 million.
Thank you. It's certainly been a good amount of money to have floating around, isn't it? It's more than floating. Okay, any other questions for Jeanette? Yes, Rachel.
Could I just ask, sorry, layperson here, I'd just like to understand the non-compliances and the note that's there. And I just see at the bottom there, it's been discussed with the chair, but I'd like to understand a little bit better. And I also note, that the hope is that the first quarter of 2026, when interest rates are presumably more favourable, that would affect the outcome there. So are you able to explain that a little bit more? I'm on page, what is that? Yeah, 91. And there are others there, but I just spotted this one and just wanted to understand it better.
Yeah, so in relation to the policy breach there, which was very slight, we were obviously informed, but at the time it wasn't favourable to undertake a swap, and I know the chair of risk and assurance was obviously involved too. And it was decided, look, it's what's best for council in whole, even though it doesn't meet the policy banding. I think the Treasury Advisor also said, look, we rushed quite a substantial policy change through because we changed Treasury Advisors last long-term plan, and he probably should have adjusted that as well, as he would have advised any other client. So he wasn't too worried about it from a risk perspective, but that also has been rectified now because there were favourable swaps, and we have undertaken it from a long-term perspective. Under a rates cap environment, it's really challenging to manage interest rate fluctuations. We've had a massive focus on bringing our cost of capital down, and Bancorp have worked really well with us to do that, and substantial results. However, now we are on the upward side of the fluctuation, and probably I'm getting a little bit more concerned from a long-term perspective at that stability. So we are shifting our focus to ensure a bit more long-term stability as well, but that does obviously cost, so there's a bit of a balance there and a bit of work that needs to be done with council to ensure that that aligns with financial strategy and the Treasury policy.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I'm just conscious this is the Treasury dashboard is 31st December, and it would be an understatement to say a little bit has happened in the global economic markets in the meantime. I guess from a credibility point of view for the committee, if we just note that we accept these recommendations on the understanding that that is not a reflection of the current state of affairs, because it's just, I think we'd be naive to assume that this is the case. Well, it's more of a comment than a question.
Yeah, through the chair, we get quarterly reports. We do have more regular involvement with our Treasury advisor at a staff management level. I guess the challenge is the quarterly reports don't align with risk and assurance, so you're going to get Marches in June when we're just about due another one. Look, we're happy to circulate them if that would be helpful as they come up as a committee. We could do something like that. And to ensure you've got fresh information, but I guess it is more about recording it at the time and then talking to you about the current environment.
So if I respond to it, I get that and I understand that, but it's more from a credibility point of view that we don't sit around here and accept this as being the fact, when in fact it's 3 months old or nearly 3 months old, and so much has changed even in the last week.
I think that's the point, Kevin, is that the reporting cycle generally has been okay because things have been relatively stable. So to reflect your suggestion, Sarah, look, it might be useful over the next short period if you did circulate, because actually that is giving support to your point, Kevin, that actually we know the world is incredibly different now, and that's when things like our interest rate cover, our maturity profiles, etc., become so much more important. We do have to turn over a fair bit of data in the course of the coming year, and in this current volatile position, that makes it challenging to renew, or rather to renew potentially. I don't know, you'll have a stronger view on this one, Sarah, arguably at rates that we would like to stomach, but one would assume that in the current context, our all-up weighted average cost of funds may well come under pressure. So I think if there is something that gives us a sense on an ongoing basis in the next couple of months about where this is really heading, that would be helpful until we get back to a stable position, if we ever get back to a stable position. Can I just ask one question, please, Sarah, which was, I was just trying to work through the non-compliance, because I think it says our maturity spread is non-compliant. Am I right in that? If I look at is the funding maturity profile within the policy control limits, this is on the liquidity and funding page, the answer is no. And does not the table that's on 2 pages later reflect that we are actually in the bands? Which is 2 to 4, it says 25 to 75%, and we're at 38%, so we're within band, but it says no, we're not complying with the limit. I think I'm relating the two things correctly.
Yes, I did just see that because I saw your highlight. But I would have to follow up with Miles. I have a feeling that minimum maximum is wrong, and that's what he would have advised us. I think he has suggested that we come to council with an amendment. And given we're so close to the long-term plan, we kind of suggested that we might just leave it for then to amend. Given that the non-compliance was small. Yeah, so I have a feeling that was just below 25.
Okay, so the 38.8% is probably the wrong number for some reason.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And that reflects that, 55% of our debt's coming up for renewal. That's quite an exposure in the current environment. Not that the position was unreasonable, going back to your point, Kevin, in December. In fact, it was probably ideal, given the way rates were going. That's where you'd want to be. But all of a sudden, you suddenly find the world changes overnight, and it actually creates it flips it really. It's a risk. Okay, so that would be good to understand that, as you say, Sarah, if we could have that. Any other questions for Sarah or indeed Jeanette?
Just a general question, and it's just around Forsyth Bar. Do we ever have anybody from that organisation come to speak to us at Risk and Assurance about the different managed, especially the different managed funds, and more to get a more intimate kind of update about how they're performing?
Yeah, they come annually, normally in February. We struggle to fit them in this February. It's at council rather than Risk and Assurance, and they will they review as well the policy parameters. So a very important piece of mahi for council, but we have kind of delayed them a couple of months this year, and then hopefully it'll align with our long-term plan program as well, so we know a bit more about where we might be going in an investment perspective.
And just supplementary to that, the investment portfolios that we've got here, do we have on file in council, any kind of portfolio, any profiles or whatever about the different investments that we do have?
Yeah, so we set the statement of investment policies and objectives with Forsyth Bar, so you set their parameters. Essentially, you also set, from a risk perspective, what organisations you won't invest in and all of the things like that. So those are the things they will come and talk to you, as well as the ESG stuff as well, which Jeanette's provided today.
So that's at some stage you'll hear from Forsyth Bar. I think also it's fair to say that, because I don't think he was available today, we will also hear from our Treasury advisor as well, either online or in person. So that will add a bit of colour, if it's the right word, to our reporting here, which is fine. Okay, brilliant. So look, the resolution is that we receive the report. Technically, there is a non-compliance or two in there which we have noted. I don't think we need to make a particular resolution at this point, given our discussion is recorded. So I'm going to move from the chair that we receive the report. Thank you, Sandra. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Thank you very much. We're going for time. 12:01. Good. Significant project risk report. Panel, how are you? Your hands, thank you.
I'm well, thank you. Tēnā koutou, everyone. Just took me a little bit longer to get to the front desk. My name's Panel. I'm the PMO manager, and I'm here today to talk about significant risks associated with our capital program. We've been reporting these for probably a good solid 18 to 20 months now, and there are a couple of changes in the way that we report, which I'll step you through today. But it has been 7 months, obviously, since we last reported these. There has been plenty of movement, and as Councillor Taylor mentioned, there'll be plenty of movement coming over the next few months. We're already starting to see some increase in contingency planning for supply chain. Last risk and assurance, we reported on 20 top risks, bearing in mind that each of these projects have a detailed risk register sitting behind them, but we're just reporting on the top 1 or 2 associated with those projects. The split has changed slightly. We've gone from 20 to 24. We have reduced the number of very high risks down 1%, 7% down for high residual risk ratings, and there's a much higher proportion of low residual. 10% were lower, now it's 45%. There's also some reclassifications that have changed the language that we're using. Just looking back, there was a June 2025 risk appetite workshop with elected members where some of the wording changed around the risk ratings, and so there was a delay in the sense that the August report was using the older rating. So whereas we used to see extreme, we now see very high. I'll just take you through the key changes. It's very small, I'm sorry. You will need a magnifying glass to read it.
I did.
We like to keep people working. Time was featuring as our highest grouping, as 30%. Sorry, time is now featuring as our highest grouping, whereas last time it was regulatory at the highest at around 30%. We now have Taupō wastewater treatment plant program of work right at the top of the list. That's new to this risk register, but it's also new to the council report. And the risk associated with that is essentially deciphering the wastewater standards and turning them into a large program of work to upgrade our wastewater treatment plant. We now have a new top risk for water reform activities, which has changed from acceptance of water services delivery plan to internal resourcing, but there's a paper about that coming up. So I'm sure you'll be able to understand more detail in that. Kinloch low zone reservoirs now much lower, and buffer tanks was medium residual risk and now low. And finally, as part of our end of calendar year risk review, 3 projects, which are View Road, Tapuai Haruru erosion control and crushed concrete, were added back on because there were a number of activities that still needed to be completed, and we felt that it was prudent to include that in this report.
Brilliant.
That's it from me.
Thank you. Now, do you have questions? Risk status? A couple of questions from me, because I'm conscious that possibly this is being seen elsewhere as well, Penel. Just with that Taupō wastewater treatment plant, which has been, I think it's said here, again, I had to use my eyes pretty carefully on this one, the project has been cancelled. Were there any contractual implications? Do we have any contracts that we had to cancel?
That's a really good question. I think it's probably it's a wording thing. There were a series of projects that were in and around the Taupō wastewater treatment plant that were linked to the old wastewater standards. Now that with the new standards in terms of deciphering those and applying them, that has turned into a program of work. Some of the older projects have been put on hold, cancelled, but are now the key parts picked up. As far as I understand, and Tony can probably confirm that 100%, there were no ramifications. They were in their early stages. But now we have a very solid kind of four-piece program of work to ensure that the wider parts of the plant are meeting those new standards. It's a good question, though.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the information. Okay, so you have established how the new wastewater standards apply to this project now.
Mike Cordell is a very quick reader, but it's he's our wastewater asset manager, but I don't actually know the number of pages that there are associated with the wastewater standards. He's now working with a project manager in my team as he goes through. I think all of them have been reviewed. It's just a case of actually taking each part of the program. So that's being built at the moment, and there are kind of 4 key pieces of work. So 75%.
Okay, 75%, there we are. There's a confident number. Now, look, thank you for that. I just the reason I asked the question for you and for Tony is that I hear a number of times, and it's current. All the sector is trying to work through what is the impact of the wastewater standards on wastewater treatment plant solutions. So no problem with that. I must confess, I've heard it for the last 2 or 3 months, and I was wondering how long it takes to actually identify what is the impact. Tony, is this something that you want to burst the song over?
Through the chair, look, it's highly complex, and even when Mike, as Pernille mentioned, has reached out to our regional council peers, there's even been some confusion amongst them as to how it's going to even be applied. So we've been working with some close consultants that we've got, and just to try and understand, interpret the standards. And we're just going through the process now, looking, okay, what's the impact of this on a long-term plan, for example. So it's going to focus certainly significantly in a long-term plan as to how we move forward with complying with the wastewater standards, particularly for a Taupō plant. And we've got a couple of outstanding resource consents. So that's just going through the internal machine at the moment, and then we'll see what comes out.
Which actually was, you've anticipated my last question here, which is, I presume we're up against time in terms of existing consents, is that right?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, not necessarily? No, okay. This is just about compliance with the standards as in contrast to consent renewal or anything like that?
Yeah, we have got some consents whereby they could be impacted by the standards. We could be in a situation where we do less, for example.
Yeah.
So we're just working around what the implications are with those.
Okay, gotcha. No, that's fine. Brilliant. That probably was not a big thing. That was a very high risk. Any other questions for folk? Sandra?
Thank you, Bruce, for the chair. I'm just looking at the Turangi master plan and presume that that's a third party that we're dealing with there. I'm concerned that we've got a statement we don't have any necessary outputs to inform the long-term plan, which means if we don't have those necessary outputs, perhaps some of those things that might be wished, desired, wanted are not going to make the long-term plan. Presumably those people involved in that are aware of that at this moment in time.
Through the chair, thank you for your question. I'm not specifically detail involved in the Turangi Master Plan work, but I will take it on board to have a chat with Tanya and Kendall and the policy team and get back to you on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? I noted I think you mentioned, Penel, that you've got the crushed landfill and the Kuratau slip back on the agenda, which I'm interested because, in fact, I don't think we've got the time. I was interested in those in themselves, but one item we'll come back to anyway later on, so there's no worry there. Folk, that's great. Thank you for that. Is there any other, I don't think there's any other questions. We move to the resolution, please, which is that we receive Penel's report. Again, thank you. Got an idea of the big risks, and that's great. I'll move it. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Sandra. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Thank you. Righty, if we could move then to the reform program. Oh, gee, this is a small item. No, it's not. It's a big one. Sorry, Kendall, I was being facetious there. Yeah, that's right. This is every day in a local government, isn't it? Just water off a duck's back. In your hands, please.
It is. Good afternoon. Just switched over. So this paper is kind of a combined paper for this particular committee today. I have Joe Walton with me. Joe is the program manager for the reform program, and I'm looking after the long-term plan and water services strategy, but we do a lot together just to try and keep each other sane. So I'll let Joe take you through just some highlights of the reform program, and then I'll provide some on the other parts, and then we'll take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, nice to be here. So I was the program manager looking after the water reform as we went through the process and got to the point of our water services delivery plan accepted last year. As we kind of got to the end, that steering group that worked through that whole process, it became quite apparent that managing the implementation that we'd agreed in our water services delivery plan was going to overlap quite a lot with all the other reforms that were coming through from central government, as well as the development of our long-term plan and the new water services strategy. So that was the purpose of putting the program governance across it, so that we're not stepping on each other's toes and conflicting, and so we're managing resources and timelines as effectively as we can while keeping on top of all the stuff that's coming. So as you'll see in the paper, we're just kind of managing all of those, dependencies as best we can, and meeting generally fortnightly just to keep on top of what's going on, what's being achieved, making sure we're progressing. There are some quite tight timelines in that space. As Kendall said, her and I work really closely together to make sure that we're prioritising the most important things that need to get done appropriately. So if there's any questions on the reform, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, Kendall can give a bit more specific update about the long-term plan and water services strategy development.
In your hands, Kendall, you said you'd do your bit, and then we'll ask the questions.
So yeah, long-term plan. We actually started planning this last year, knowing that the little highlights reel from central government about all the change that was coming. So we did turn our heads to it a little bit earlier and start thinking about how we needed to scope the project out and things like that. It's going to be a busy year, that's for sure. You've just heard from annual report and things like that. So, there is a lot of organisational priority that is going to be coming together all at one time. Just on that, I suppose, knowing there is a lot going on, we do work really closely with particularly our finance team and understanding where there are constraints and challenges, and making sure that our scheduling is aligned as best as possible to try and make sure that things such as resourcing is, we can try and manage that as best as we can. So you will see that in the report that time, scope and resourcing are amber presently. And again, that comes down to, as I was just saying, those organisational priorities and working through those, but also a big part of that is the reform program. And, the start of the year, we had to turn our heads to the rates capping information that came out, preparing submissions, but also trying to understand what that would mean for the later parts of the process, including our activity area planning, our asset management plans, and developing those, and also pulling a program together so that we can sit down with our elected members and work them through that and get to that final stage, hopefully, in one piece. So, that's all I wanted just to highlight there. And then I just wanted to also mention that there is a small mistake on the attachment that you have at the bottom. It says June 2026. Seems a little bit ambitious.
No, I'm going to hold you to it, actually, to be honest.
Everyone stop everything else. We're just going to focus on this. So, no, we have fixed that up, and the correct version is loaded into Diligent for our elected members. So that's it from me. Joe and I, happy to take any questions. And
Well, I can just say it without sounding facetious, I love diagram. That was tremendous to read, even though I hadn't picked up the June 2026, which is great. The other thing, congratulations. I love this phrase, a vortex of competing priorities. That's we should. I'm going to use that one again. I can assure you, I'm a bit of a magpie for words like that. A vortex of competing priorities. Love it. Okay, folk, do you have questions for Joe or for Kendall here? I think you've Just with your, great to get the summary on that graph. What does the down arrow mean? Lowering risk, I take it?
That's right.
It's getting more in hand than
We were
it was.
quite worried about some of the financial separation activities, just the team hadn't really had time to even get their head around how or who was going to do it, but we've got a pretty good plan in place now, so we're feeling more confident about, because that timeline's coming quite soon. We want to achieve that for the coming financial year, so that means we need to get that separation plan pretty firmly in place by June, but we're feeling a lot better about that now.
You need that speed so what you can have the opening position.
That's to enable, the reporting of the first. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Just to say, the first Waters report is due for 26, 27 year, so November next year, but in order to be able to capture all the actuals, we need to have the system separation in place so that we can be set up for next year's end of year report.
November 27.
That's right.
Yeah. So through the chair, all of the proposed system changes from a financial perspective, in order to capture the information disclosures, the full financial separation have to be in place by 1st of July.
Yeah,
so
this year
to allow us to meet the 30th of June reporting program.
Brilliant. Okay, understand that. So the time risk is decreasing now, which is good. I get the point. I think you've emphasised this, Kendall. The resourcing side is a challenge, and I did write against the table exactly what Jeanette brought to us when we were talking about just getting the good old annual report out. These are the challenges around the resourcing, particularly, you've mentioned finance, and I think that is there. I assume the rest of the organisation is also stretched in this vortex of competing priorities. Folk, any other questions? Yeah. I'm gonna take it away, Nicola. Don't worry, it's going to be you. Any other thoughts or questions, folk? I sort of feel like we're receiving this without giving you guys any great solutions at this stage, which I feel a bit bad about. Because in one sense it's trite to say I feel the pain. I think what's important to me here from a sort of a systems and process perspective is indeed going back to your diagram and your summary. You know where you're going and you've got a plan. We're going to just have to write it with you guys as to where you go. So it would be interesting to see what is the status at our June meeting. I think this is something that we need to, from our quarterly meetings, just reflect on the plan to plan all the way through, which makes sense.
Definitely. I suspect there could be some change come June. Today, for example, we system improvements is being read second reading at central government today. So that should hopefully have some clarity, provide a little bit of certainty about maybe where the direction is going. But again, these next couple of months is, we will be keeping an eye on everything and how we build that into this process.
Joe, do you have a similar, Joe, do you have a similar similar diagram for your area?
Yeah, we do have. I do have a timeline, that I can provide.
Love it.
Yeah, okay,
Good.
great.
Get
Love
it.
a good roadmap. The one thing I just wanted to add to your point was that we are establishing the Water Services Committee. This committee will be familiar with that. So that committee will be monitoring slightly more closely how our implementation is going and how we're tracking. And they will be meeting monthly, so we'll be keeping a close eye on that. And part of we are required to report to the DIA quarterly, so the first one will be in April, just how we're progressing with our implementation as well. And just to add, also the Commerce Commission final information disclosure was finalised just a couple of weeks ago as well, so that is giving us greater clarity on what exactly will be expected. So.
Well, look, I want to reflect, again, this will always come up with a risk committee, that there are other committees or council receiving information. We don't want to repeat the exercise and certainly particularly the implementation of the plan with the Water Committee. We shouldn't be trying to get over the top of that. But clearly the intersection comes particularly around that we are still meeting our corporate objectives of separation, of being ready for 1 July next year, of the resourcing challenge. That's our logical governance area rather than the detail, which I'll leave to the Water Services Committee, Joe. So I'll keep that. I'll let you. You'll have the discretion over what gets here and what doesn't. But it's just those big risk items that I'd be interested for us to understand and to have clarity on. Any other questions or comments? No? Can we go to the resolution? Thank you for that, you guys, both of you. Go to the resolution, which is that I suspect it's simply that we received the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Sandra. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Righty, the Taupō District Emergency Management Plan. Emily and Tanya, I take it, is that right? Have I got that right? Nice to meet you both.
Yes, you do. Kia ora. Kia ora tia. I am Tanya Russell. I'm the Community Engagement and Development Manager, and I have with me today Emily Harrington, who is the Senior Emergency Management Advisor for Taupō District Council. This is the first time we have been the agenda. And so we wanted to take the opportunity to introduce ourselves and what it is that we do within the organisation. So Emily is our only emergency management advisor for Taupō District Council and works very closely with our counterparts in the group across the Waikato. We have some very clear deliverables from the work plan, which we shared the current draft, which was reviewed late last year, and we're currently processing at a sedium of professionals level around the timelines and commitments on that space. So hopefully by the time we come to the next risk and assurance meeting, we'll be able to declare what those timelines are and where we're tracking against them. At the moment, we have a keen focus. So Emily joined our team very late last year, so December last year she came into our team. Has been with council for quite a many year across compliance and also resource consenting. And I have been with our team for just on 9 months now. So civil defence is quite new to both of us as far as diving in. But we've spent the last 3 months really working through what is the current operational readiness status and where are our potential gaps. So we've put together a really clearly defined training calendar over the next few months, and we're working towards our annual exercise, which is on the 8th of May, which will be in here. So very much around the operational readiness. We're also very closely working with other councils and counterparts around different deployment and I guess the increase in severe weather events that we're seeing, especially across January and February. We have had quite a considerable uptake in deployment, and we've got some really core critical staff who lean in. Emily, for example, spent 10 days in Tairāwhiti working within the Gisborne EOC, which was a great experience, but also great to bring some knowledge back within ourselves. So that's going to help us in the coming weeks and months. We also have started to kick off our community capability development sessions and also the Marae Readiness framework. this is very much working within the community to understand what the current response framework is that they have, if any, and then ultimately how we can walk alongside them and integrate them through that response. At this stage, the marae readiness or preparedness strategy is in its very early stages, and we've had a couple of initial meetings with some iwi hapu delegates around what the best approach is, and we have some critical support coming out of our group in the form of Taupō, who is the marae Māori leader. So, Taupō? Kale is from the group, sorry, the Waikato group, Councillor Mitch. But we're working with Taina.
Thank you.
Just a concern from being involved with the emergency management last triennium. Do we have coverage, and are we considering Ngāti Whātua, Ngāti Taho, and also our Mangakino hapus? Because it is very easy to become too wharetoa-centric when sometimes. So just wanting to check off that those marae are being incorporated as well.
The short answer is yes. I love a short answer. You know this, Councillor Leonard. The short answer is yes. We're taking guidance from the group, but we also have a very good, I guess, picture of our different locations across the district and the impacts within those, and the focus from there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Great to meet you too. Is there further questions for the folk here? Yes, Sandra.
Thank you, Bruce. I was on the previous emergency management committee that was in the last triennium, and I'm not sure how you're going to be able to answer this question, but I'll try it. One of the issues we had at that time was the fact that Waikato Regional Council was responsible for so much in this area, particularly the issue around the lake and accidents and trucks and so forth and that sort of thing. You know, where are we up to with that sort of situation? It was sort of a big black hole, and I know that from a Taupo District Council concern, we felt that we weren't really supported. Yeah, there's a question in there somewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Greenstein. As far as, I guess, if we take it a step back, and I think from a civil defence standpoint, our mandate is around response and readiness and coordination. So when incidents do happen and we are required from a coordination standpoint, that is when civil defence leans in, so to speak, and we work with those first responding agencies in order to, I guess, capture the big picture and coordinate wider. So when it comes to the likes of your accidents and that sort of thing, I guess the biggest opportunity we have is a debrief afterwards, and part of the last triennium there was the incorporation of the Emergency Services Coordination Committee, of which our controllers and myself and Emily now sit on, along with police, FENS, St John's, Harbour Master, Taupō Hospital. So it's quite a big group of, even the prison are a part of that, and we meet with them quarterly to ensure good relationships, good partnerships, so that we can respond and support together. And just as a nice little plug, we're actually all together on the Kaimanawa Reserve on Sunday for the Emergency Services Day. Yes.
And you're feeling a little bit more confident than what actually we were feeling in the last triennium about that relationship of, you know, an emergency.
Yes, very, very much so. And in fact, we're hosting in May the next coordination meeting, and we're going to be walking through a tabletop of response to the Turangi-Tongariro flooding, so that each coordinator can, I guess, deliver what their responsibility and what their deliverables are in that room, to make sure that our response plans are as accurate as possible. Yeah.
Well, that's positive. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, one.
Yeah, go, Kevin.
Thanks, Tanya, Emily, and welcome. That's a comprehensive work plan. Not much room for weekends and evenings. I just quick question, and it's not loaded. What's your level of confidence around achievability, given it's an 18-month time frame? And I have another question after that.
Well, you just heard from Kendall about the long-term plan.
The phrase is you have a vortex of competing priorities, Tanya. You're welcome to use that phrase, so I'll take it.
We can match Kendall's vortex with some significant and severe weather events. I think confidence, I believe, and again, I still feel like I'm in these early stages, and Julie has much more experience in this space than what I do, but I do believe that one of the biggest risks we have in this space is the ability to resource and respond quickly in a space of potential fatigue from a staff pressure standpoint of we're doing so much, and then we ask them to jump in at 2 a.m. when the TT starts flooding and that sort of thing, and what is the impact or the long-term ripple effect of sustained response on the organisation to deliver BAU if we're dragging 30 to 40 people into a response management situation. So it's something that Hadley, as our GM and one of the controllers, and we're catching up with Warwick and Steve, who are the other two controllers for our district, around how do we balance that act between BAU pressure and deliverables versus being ready for response and having that continued education and fatigue management.
If I may, Tanya, great answer. I just also acknowledge that we monitor this at a regional level, so through the coordinating executive group we monitor progress. So Emily helps me with my quarterly updates to that group. The basic answer there was there is some concern across the group about making sure that we meet these targets. It would be fine if we didn't have events, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So we are monitoring on a quarterly basis too.
You know, I get that real life has a habit of getting in the way of the best plans in the world. I guess one of the kinds, so I don't mean to ambush you with this question, but there's a lot of priority ones here, and I see we've got a start and a finish date on that. In terms of a quarterly update, it would be really good to have another column in this as to where we're at. That's really good for today, but I guess a quarter down the track. How we're tracking.
Yeah. And I think also on that, Tanya, along with this idea that we can and we should be providing, good keen support for you with this, just that sense of a small risk register. You've mentioned exactly what I see elsewhere around the country, which is the ability to sustain a response, and fatigue and doubling up on jobs and what have you. Emily, I'm also chair at Gisborne, and I know what it takes for an organisation like that to maintain a response. I mean, in their case, event after event after event, let alone one. So, to the extent that is a good communication tool with us as governors, a sense of what are it may only be 3, but it could be more. What are the risks would be really just useful to add in behind this really good report. Be great. With that, well, thank you, folk. Appreciate that, and I'd love to hear how you're on at Gisborne. To be honest, Emily, in a different situation, I'd be interested to know. And I hope it was a useful experience for you as you jump into the ship here. The motion is that we receive the report. Do we have a thanks, Kevin? Thanks, Kylie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Have we got time to squeeze in another little one before lunch? No, we are at lunch. Can you folk come back after lunch, please? Is that okay? Thank you, Louise. I appreciate you guys being there and what have you, but lunch is there. How long do we need, guys? Pardon? 20 minutes? So we're back at 10 to? Brilliant. That'll be great. Thank you for that. We'll adjourn for lunch.